Good morning. It is just after 10:30 a.m. It is Sunday, and that means it's time for Sunday Club, weekly live stream where every week we code some Ruby on Rails, and we are working on an event registration application where people can sign up to. At the moment, not a lot, but they have an administration area where they can. Not at the moment, not do a lot because we're still in the early stages, but they're going to be able to create events, and then other people will be able to either register or buy tickets for those events. And one of the things we want to focus on is group ticketing and registrations. And we kind of poke around and explore different things in Rails and things like that. So 0 follow-up from last week. I haven't had a chance to take a look at any of this stuff, but I am actually off work this week coming up. So I am hoping to squeeze in at least one extra stream, I think on the UI design side of things, which would be back to using kind of Sketch, because I have done a couple of those in the past. Check out the Sunday Club YouTube channel. I think the link should be somewhere. It's Sunday Club YouTube. You can Google it. You'll figure it out. Let's dive in. Okay. It's been a week. I haven't looked at this stuff. Let's get back into it. But I think we had this idea of a very rough form that would allow us to create our events. So let's see. So we had /admin/events. It would be /admin/new, and we need this organization ID on the end. Okay, so zoom in a little bit. Right, okay, so I had obviously signed up for an account, and then you need to, okay, so there's a bunch of stuff to get us in to the app at the moment because we have to be confirmed, which is fair enough, and we have to join up all the organization stuff. Let's do that because I don't think I can be bothered to go back and build all of that stuff. So let's just set up a user so that we can see where we're up to, and we can play with that user real quick. Okay. So we'll just sign up here. So we can be test admin at example.com. Put in a password. Sign up. Okay, so we're taken to the homepage. So we assume that user.last test admin example.com. Perfect. So we then want to say user.last.confirm because we've got devices confirmable module turned on. So they're confirmed. And what we want to do is say organization.last. Is there? Yep, great. So we can say organization membership create. We're just doing all of this really quickly, and we can say that the user is user.last, and we can say that the organization is organization.last. Great, and that's been created, and the organization ID is 1. So now when we go to that admin, okay, that's still not working. It should be /admin/events organization ID 1. Oh, because I didn't actually log in, did I? I just signed up, so I'm assuming it doesn't sign in then. So if we say take our user's email address, which was testadmin.com, put the password in. He signed in, great, and then he's gone to where we think he's gone to. Okay. And I think we had admin/events, then we had /new. And this is where we got to at the end of last week's stream. Right, and so what we had spoken about was view component. View component and this UI. So we have got another repo here, which is called admin UI prototype. Yes, it is. Okay, so let's open that up. And this was for a while on the stream, we were just kind of playing around with different ideas. And this was what we were actually prototyping, wasn't the kind of like minimal version that we're trying to ship. just 63 pending changes. It was this idea of like, I was kind of really interested and still am interested in this idea of event applications that both have constraints and are really flexible around the idea of like groups and e-commerce items. Like you can add a t-shirt to your order of 4 tickets, and how do you then allocate the tickets to the right event and allow refunds and all of that fun stuff. So I was just exploring the domain modeling of that within this prototype. But we did have an area, an admin where you could do stuff in it, and it was using view component. And okay, when people are using hundreds or thousands of view components, things must get real busy. Like these must get namespaced pretty quickly, I would assume. Sidebar nav or something like that. But I think in general, I did like the approach. I don't think I really got it to the bottom of much of it. But I think I liked it in general. And we sort of, towards the end of these live streams, bumped into the part where some people were just putting, I don't know how much we really got into it, but like they were putting one component on a page, and that basically represented the page. And there was some kind of fun thinking around that kind of stuff. Okay. So let's do it again. I think this will be the 3rd time we've installed view components. So I'm about to make the same mistakes I've already made twice within the last year. But I think we're kind of at this stage. So I don't think we want to commit this. What have we got in our... Yeah, we've kind of got this ability to... We've added create... Oh, because it needed a path to go to... And we added something in here. And we start adding here. Okay, this was just an example. I don't think we actually need any of this stuff. Name starts at, ends at, and time zone can all go. Yeah, I don't think we need any of that. We can do all this again in view component. That was just to show our workings. That can all go. Just a bit of quick work. So where are we at in terms of branches and whatnot? What are we on? So we are in create-events. And what does create events actually have in it? Yeah, so create events. Also, it's literally creating the model and everything. An event model. Add new action to admin events, control them. To create new events via the control panel. Okay, so we could put the view component stuff either right at the start of this or go off and make a new branch with it in. Let's check it in where we are and we can rebase this later. Okay, cool. So let's make the same mistakes that done 10 times before. I don't remember Rails view component. Yeah, I don't remember this being a complete pain. I remember it not being too bad in terms of getting everything set up. But at least we've got our own streams to look back on. I can watch myself fuck this up if we do mess it up. Okay, so guide. Maybe we just put the gem in and get going. Installation. In gem file, add gem view component, require view component engine. And I was discussing the generate. Sorry, I'm just skimming through this. I get burned every time by just cracking through without reading the rest of the docs. That's it. Okay, do that. install view component. Okay, pretty sure we already had that lying around. Great. Okay, so let's commit that. Now we have this thing. Cool. View component. Gem. Having used this a little before, there's an early assumption that we're going to be using this in the app UI. I even bother doing that? Cool. So let's make a component. Use the component generator view. So the generators page. Template engine, test framework. I'm nowhere near working out what components I actually need. I might be running before I can walk here. Place the view in a sidecar directory. So that's what we were doing. The sidecar stuff is what we were doing in the prototype app. I think there was this idea here. Was the sidecar one different? You can basically change the structure of what you end up with. So here you end up with the Ruby, the Sass, and the HTML all in the same place, which I found pretty convenient. I can't remember if that's the sidecar one or if the sidecar is the opposite one. Maybe the sidecar is where you would get a sub directory? Yeah, I think you get a subdirectory on the other one. Okay. Can't remember the details of that. Okay. So in the same way, when we were looking at Tailwind, you sort of got that Tailwind UI collection was like a set of things to kick you off with. Is there like a best practice view component way of doing things? I remember last time we did these, I was sort of just making it up as I was going along, but I guess every app is so different that that's fine. But I mean, you're always going to have form elements, buttons, stuff like that. Is that a really stupid thing to ask? Like Rails view component library? It's like a storybook. No, I guess people are just making their own. By the looks of things. When you did this for, I mean, I know Tailwind is a CSS thing, so it's totally different. But like when you did that for Tailwind, there's like an industry of people selling other components. But could that work? Could you just sell people? Like, I'm guessing to Tailwind and Bullet Train and those other ones we've looked at. Like, if they were to do this, they could already have like a pre-made list. All right, what did we do in our? Have we already done some of this work? Components. Or any of these form elements? No, we did get to the stage of having form elements. I must have done those by hand. Yeah, there's like select there. Okay, so what have we got? We had text box, for example. Is that where we start with our component library? We start with the basics of a form. Let's try it. Maybe this is totally wrong, but that doesn't matter. That's okay. So we want to go to our generators page. we're using RSpec, so we can tell it that we want to use RSpec. In Rails, generate component example title. Wait, what does title do? Is that an attribute that you pass in? Are they title and content attribute? Yeah, okay, they're attributes. So let's do this one. So let's do text box, label, placeholder. I don't know. Will do. Okay, so now we have new stuff, app components, add text box template here, label and placeholder there. Is like, if anyone's used this, like, is this sensible? Why didn't I do this in the prototype repo? Okay, so in here we would have. Oh man, it's been so long since I've done any of this stuff. Do you do like a, what is it, like a field set? No, because that would be around a series of them, right? So you would just have a div. There's probably something semantic that you should put there. And then label or, yes, you need more attributes. Okay, so label for, and then you need the name of the thing. This is a really stupid idea because Rails gives us so much of this for free. This might be a really stupid idea. Let's do Rails view component forms. Form formation. Here we go. Whoa, that's tiny font. I'm skimming this. Okay, so they're saying modify the Rails form. Okay, so they're talking about overriding the form builder in form 4. That when you call text area, you instead use the component. Okay, that all makes sense to me. I think because I'm talking about shipping the most minimal version, am I about to embark on something more complicated than I really want to get into? Hello, our team is in the process of rolling out view components. Currently, we have a button component that renders HTML, blah, 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 button link, blah, blah, blah. This is from, okay, so this is from 2020, so it's not a long time ago. The Rails helpers are basically wrappers around button tag, given you're not using button tag. Da, da, da. Okay, unfortunately, I think the future of forms plus view component means somebody coming up with a set of form components and a few helpers to actually render those components. Basic Rails helpers are just printing out HTML almost directly. Okay, there's a lot going on in this conversation, and it's making me think that we shouldn't be using view components for forms just yet. I think the future of forms plus view component will mean a new library. The Rails form helpers simply don't offer a way to inject smarter behavior. Ultimately, a Rails checkbox is really just a checkbox. It is not a checkbox component. I've been working on this for the past few weeks, and I think that Rails already has some awesome conventions for forms that Vue components should not have to reinvent. The solution for this is to create a custom form builder methods that override the default Rails ones. Take a look at that. Okay, so coming to the same conclusion as that blog post. Is it the same person? Don't know if we know the name of the person who wrote the blog post. Okay. You could create your... that makes me think Rails had the concept of components all along. You could create your own builder, which can in turn use Vue components inside. So this is the same thing as the blog post. You're building a form builder of some sort. You then have text field, which takes in these things. You could then pass all of this stuff through to your own component. The important bit is to allow your Vue component to follow the same convention as Rails default form builder methods, which adds attributes like name, which is crucial for receiving param in the controller, or ID, which adds an ID based on the object of the form. In the previous example, the inputs field name attribute would be dog first name and ID would be dog first name. Right, okay, and that would all come through. You'd have to look at, I guess, how text field worked and implemented these arguments. Throwing in my 2 cents. I don't use Vue component with form elements at all. I've had much better results by customizing the form builder, in my case to generate Tailwind UI style markup for the implements, and using CSS for starting link buttons. One mental model that I think, okay, this one says let's not do anything, and I think I might be heading in that direction. One mental model that I think may be helpful is that the Rails form helpers are already abstracted into components and have years and years of battle hardening and deep first-party support in the framework. f.submit save. I'm not sure you're really getting much benefit from Vue component in this case. If you want to make Vue components of visual parts of a form, a card, or an input group, that will work fine, but in my opinion, avoid replacing text inputs, selects, buttons, links to, etc. Interesting, okay. This is super useful. Okay, I'm really... Also, how handy are these discussion... This discussion UI in GitHub is much better than the issues UI. Lots of people... Okay, so it seems like I'm asking a reasonable question because lots of people are dealing with this by the looks of it. Okay, so it seems like... Current state, writing HTML in a form builder is hard. Okay. Needs to know about template, concat, capture, and the... Right, okay, the length of this one, where... How would you make it? Okay. Okay, this is all putting me off doing it. Remember that so proposed solution. Remember that one of the findings of text field was there 2 responsibilities. Okay. Modifying Rails. Okay. You're talking about putting... Okay, I've read enough. We're going to back away from this dramatically. So let's delete these. Move to trash. And what presumably we can do instead... Oh, but I did throw away my form code, which is now super annoying. Okay, so the form code we have really is the form code, and we want to... Without having Vue components to even modularize the styling, we would then have like just global styles for form elements. Okay, fine. We could still do that within our SAS stuff. Yep, okay. So what we learned so far, we are not going to use Vue component for form elements, but we do want to make a form. Let's get back to it. So we're going to recreate some of the code that I just deleted at the start of this, which is super annoying, but at least we now have... Oh, we can get rid of the as well. Oh, okay, so let's go and make our route because it needed the path. Did we have a test for... a new action? Oh, we did. Okay, but we hadn't implemented the shared example for abstract that way. Okay, so we're now to create. Means we have a create action, and in new we can add in no, I don't think I need that, do I? Form with I'm trying to remember this from last week because the syntax from form 4 changed, I think. So model is now event, but in the controller we want to create an event. Yeah, and the other thing we talked about was getting the organization from the subdomain. Okay, so we can do that as well. And form with, got to look up that form with syntax. Form with Rails. Form with URL, form with, I think that should work. And we should have text field. Right, does this work? No, because that is admin. What does that need an equals? Great. Okay, so we've got event name and a thing there. So we could. So that's using text field. Used simple form before because basically you always want the same output where you would want like your labels and your text field grouped similarly. So this is using form.label and things like that. Is there another level of abstraction inside the built-in one? Like f.input? Or is that what I was using simple form for last time I did it? Customizing form builders. The field for? No, that's for hasn't belongs to accepts nested attributes for, isn't it? Using Tanker as a form builder. Okay, so I wonder if that's what I was using, something like simple form for. Because you were just getting, with one line, you were getting so much of the UI. But I think you could do your own form builder without having to add an entire gem. Yep, so you get f.input and then pass this in, and then you can define the HTML that gets put out with that somewhere. And then you can just choose not to use it a bunch if you want to. You can still use the default Rails ones as well. Where is the bit where it tells you... Sorry, there's loads of docs reading in this one, but genuinely this is something I haven't done for a little while. And I'm kind of more interested in this one because I want to try and stick with this code for a little while rather than ditching it like we've done before. So why do I care about same HTML being produced? Simply, yeah, so this is, look, this is just using another form builder. Everyone's just wrapping that Rails behavior. It's why do I care about this? It is a lot of HTML to maintain if it's not being produced automatically. Okay. Yeah, and I never had any problems with simple form, so I think I might. This still maintained and all of that good stuff. I mean, it seems to be. Seems to be loads of good stuff here. I'm tempted to use this again because there was loads of upside and I don't remember there being much downside. So let's just sort of go with something I know. If anyone watching this later, like, no, you want to do something different for some reason. Cool, new stuff, great. So oh, no, sorry, no, it didn't. Okay, let's say this one and this one. Add. Let's do it a long way. Add simple form gem. So we're going to say after looking into using view component for forms, and at this point, that not sounding a great idea, and then we can put a link to that thing we just read on the GitHub thread. I'm going to link to the one that was like, don't bother. Copy link. Looking into using view component for our forms, and at this point, that not sounding like a great idea. To in this code, as I have experience with it allowing to choose. Let's go to produce distant form. I'll put slash starting. I'm not wording this very well, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just like trying to indicate that why we added the gem, because I think that's kind of useful when you do stuff like that. Okay, so does that mean that do we now get simple form with, or is it still simple form? all of that stuff. I don't really think I care about usage. If I write default labels, okay. Yeah, so since simple form generates a wrapper div around your label and input by default, you can pass any HTML output to that wrapper. So you can then, I think you can pass like a block to the wrapper as well and stuff like that. Like you can override anything, but the defaults are that you'll get a lot more. Will I get that, or do I have to put URL? And this becomes input. Oh no, can't remember the syntax. Input, and then I think label. I think it's like that. Let's see what this does. Got to restart the server. Simple form is not configured in the application, and we'll use the default values. Use Rails generate simple forms to generate the simple form configuration. Okay, let's do that. Big initialize the simple form, config locale, simple form. I think all that is probably fine. Let's see what it says. We were just about to use the default stuff anyway, so. Yeah, so you get a bunch of handy stuff that you can configure. Yeah, I don't remember, like, I always remember there being a solution to like, hey, this is annoying. Or hey, actually, hey, this is annoying. Like, hey, something unexpected is happening here. And that's our templates thing. Okay, fine. Add simple form config files. So now if we run a server, do we get something usable? Exciting. Okay, great. A form. So if you look at what we get here, like, I know that seems like a really small thing and a lot of time to spend on it, but that will save a long time up running. So what we now have is, for the input, you get a wrapper element with classes, and there's a bunch of default stuff here, which is in that configurable stuff. So we've got input string required, so that's input, that's a standard one. String, that's the type of type of element that's being added. Simple form is adding that. Required, it has looked at the model and knows that is required, and therefore it is deciding to add this class based on whether it's required or not. And event name is the name of the model and the name of the attribute. So you then get a label, which we configured. So you can see that we've got a little abbreviated, I don't even know what that HTML thing is, like abbreviation, whatever it is. You get a little asterisk. All of this is coming from simple form. Like, we would have had to build our own version of that without it, which is fine because Form Builder handles all of that stuff. But it's just going to save us a bunch of time if we're not going to use view components for them. And again, we can then come into the internals of simple form and mess with this, but always guarantee, as long as we do f.input for this, like a string, wherever that code is, like, we'll always get the same thing out, which is great because then you don't need to worry about it when you need to change a class name or something like that in your CSS. So that's all good. That's super helpful. We've done a lot of work to get really nowhere there, but that's fine. That's the nature of the beast. So we then have name. We then had starts at, and had ends at. Start time. End date and time. And there was one more that I can't remember. It was location, which was a string, I think. I think it was location. Time zone. And I think for this one, if you have a single word and you don't specify what the label is, it will use the right word. And if you notice here, I've put these ones because this is title case. So capital E, capital N for event name. And I think the default for simple form is sentence case, but I'm assuming you could probably change that as well. See what this now produces. Great. So we're not a million miles away from where we were before. And if you notice, time zone is a text area. And the reason for that is because we've got it as a text field because Postgres handles text, t.text as like a variable length thing, whereas t.text in MySQL, I think, is something different that default. So it defaults to a text area. Whereas we can put as string. So you can coerce, you can tell simple form that you want a different type of thing. And that's actually going to be a drop-down list, so it doesn't really matter. Now, what would be cool here is to have a proper datetime picker that's not this, but we can go with this for now, so then we can actually get this working. So let's, oops, nope, don't want that. Is it still f.submit? And then you go create event. Great, and that will submit it. Cool. So we have all of this working. Haven't done view component. We've opted not to use view component for form elements. We've installed simple form. We have this up and running, but we need the organization to work to get this to submit. So let's add this as a whip commit. Where does this branch get us? Because it gets to event. We need any of the event stuff to go and do subdomain stuff, do we? So let's add all of this as a whip commit. It's work in progress. Form for adding a new events. That's all fine. So we've kept that where we're up to. Then we can wander off and do something else. And let's go back to master. And then we can create a new branch, and it's going to be event, nope, organization, slugs, org slugs. And ran over this at the end of last week's stream, where basically we want to put in something before /admin so that the slug of the organization is always in the URL. And we spoke, you can go back to the end of last week's stream to cover this, but you can basically have it as a subdomain or in the path. They're adding it as a subdomain does add a level of complexity that you might want to consider, because subdomains are a pain in the bum sometimes when it comes to DNS and SSL and all of that fun stuff. So we're going to avoid that complexity by just putting it in as part of the path. So we're going to have localhost or whatever /org slug /admin /blah blah blah. So And are we going to have that because if an admin has more than one organization, yes, they're always going to need to. There's no point at which we're going to show them multiple organizations in one place. They're going to have to move between those. Maybe that's yeah, maybe that's fine. Okay, so let's do this. We want to add slug to organization. So we've got this file. So this, we're going to use migration here. We're going to add a record, add a field in the DB to represent this. And we are going to, I never remember the syntax ever. I don't even know why I bother trying. It's Rails add column migration. Get it wrong every time. Decades of my life have been spent getting this wrong. Add column. Add column, table name, column name. Column. Yeah, so slug I think is it fine? So if you switch it to subdomain, so I've called it subdomain and then wished it was slug before. I think slug is fine because you can use it for everything. We want it to be always present. So we're gonna say we don't want any null values. It's going to be, whoops, it's going to be of type text. It's not going to have a default value. What's it? Is it going to have a limit? No, we can't add limit in text in Postgres, so it would be a string. But we possibly do want a limit because there's only so long we would want those to get because they'll be in URLs. So this is another example of where we'd want to be overly conservative and then possibly have to move things back later. So maybe this isn't a text, maybe this one is a string. So we did this recently in something. I can't remember what we did it in. Oh, it's in the other branch. So no, I definitely don't know what we did it in. Something to do with event, I would guess. Event name, probably. Not false, but we could put limit. How many characters are going to allow in a URL? Not many. Again, we could just vibe it out, can't we? This is what we did last time. So this is, oh no, where you would put like Saint, I'm trying to think of something with a long name. Christopher's, what's it? Christopher's Church of the something. Like that would be a pretty lengthy organization name. How many is that? That's 47, so it's 48. Even 50 is pretty long. You just put it at 75 in case. So no, that's going to be in a URL. Okay, I think we can go to, let's go to 50. Just picking things arbitrarily. Oh, and the other thing I was going to look at while I was here is I have used a gem for this. I have used friendly ID, and then I read loads. I see things go past on like Ruby Weekly and things like that where they're like, oh, you probably don't need this gem. And it's kind of like simple form where I've used it a bunch of times and never bumped into a pain point with it. So I'm like, okay, I'm happy not to use it, but it's never given me any major problems that I'm aware of. Maybe it really has issues with massive scale. I don't know, but I've never need a. No, if we use anything like that on any of the largest sites that I've ever worked on. I remember, but like for my personal stuff, I've used it and it's never been a problem. Because all it's sort of doing is like, does this exist? Great. Yep. Take some sort of param and put hyphens in it, and then you're done. And also what it does do is abstract away the concept of having a history. So it's like history and versioning, which is super helpful because I've had to build that at least once, and that's a pain in the bum. Ooh. This seems to be up to date, I guess. I'm happy to just use this. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no. Oh yeah, it gives you these active record helpers, which I have never used. Maybe that's where people bump into the pain points where they're just like, oh, like if the API for that really changed, but I've only ever used it for actually like handling like the history and stuff like that. Sorry, I'm just reading this. Oh, this is really small. RedNet can use a separate column to store slugs for models, which requires some text processing. I think you can give it like a method for, hey, this one's not available, just tag a number on the end. So if like you go for event-name and it's gone, you can have event-name-1, but you can pass it like, it has like an API for a method that can handle that. Yeah. Or by default, it will actually chuck a UUID on the end, which I have also left in the default state. So yeah, okay. I'm going to make this font bigger. So by default, I think to make things unique, it will chuck a UUID on the end of something. So it's already pretty long. So you probably don't want that. Right, okay, and then it has slug candidates. Yeah, so you can give it like a preference of like, okay, this isn't available, try this one. Okay, that one's not available, try this one. And what I mean by try this one is you can append attributes from elsewhere on the model to do things, but that this could be a method that could bring back a random number or something like that, I think. Yeah, and there's loads of stuff around this. Okay, I'm going to use this as well. So let's just install this. Let's install this before we do our migration. Okay, we've got friendly ID in. Okay, let's get commit, and we are going to add friendly ID gem. Cool. We're about to add slugs to the organization model, and I've used this gem in the past without any issues, and it adds some really handy type today functionality. So no more needed for that. That'll do. It does what it does. Great. Okay, I think it takes slug as a default Yep, add a slug column to the desired table. So this is what we've just done. And what does unique do? Okay, right. So we need the unique. Can we just add a unique true on the index? Could we add unique on the scale? Can you add unique true to the add column? Do you have to add the index Rails? Add unique. There's one that doesn't. You're gonna index. That's on create. No, you need to add column method. But can you do? This one is saying you can do slug unique. Interesting. I think we can just do add at the index. Rails knows what it's doing. Nothing more is required. I think it's much more of a dangerous statement than Rails knows what it's doing. Rails knows what it's doing. It probably doesn't have a clue what you're doing. So we can do this. Is this right? Let's see if that runs. What does it mean contains null value? Wait, does it already exist? Was I trying to be too helpful? No, it's not there. Organization slug. I'm definitely doing that wrong. Okay, that's fine. Column blah blah string. Can I just leave that off then? Try it again. Cool. Okay, you can't add the. I think that's fine. So that has added a field called slug to organizations. It has a limit of 50 characters. There is a unique index on that field. Okay, let's go through the rest of the instructions. Generate the friendly configuration file and a new migration. Rails generate friendly ID. Let's commit these as we go, because I might be about to mess this up. Why is it adding all that? Okay, so there's obviously a bunch of stuff. Let's just go back. Well, that won't change the schema, will it? Because there's already the events table from my other branch, which I don't need. Oh no, because now I need my user and my organization, which I don't really want to rebuild. Okay, fine. We'll just try and commit it without that in. That's just laziness, but that's fine. Fine. I just don't have to go back and rebuild all that stuff, and I've got no seed data or anything working, so it'll take me 5 minutes to do that. Yeah, we could just do this. Check that this is in. Okay, so we want to stage this. And we want to stage this. We can lose the rest. And then we want this, the whole file. Let's just do it in the... add migration for slug column. That's sort of all I really need, like. Yeah, like it does the thing. I don't need it to do anything more. Why are these not going away? They're going away. It's just a bit slow. Cool. So now we have that. Right, now we're going to run this at the command that this gem wants us to do. So Rails generate friendly ID. And now this is going to do some stuff. What's this thing going to do? It's going to do a lot of stuff. Okay, let's take a look. So it is checking out a Rails version because of that change. Then it's going to make a table called friendly ID slugs. So this is this history, I'm assuming. So sluggable will be polymorphic to the thing that has a slug. This will be a history of other slugs. The scope I'm guessing is like you could have user slash event dash one and then user two slash event dash one, and I'm assuming that it allows you to store that scope. Assuming. That all seems good though, because we want that feature. So let's just lift it as is and say that we're happy with that. So we've got this config file as well. Just stuff that it's doing. Oh, interesting. So it gives you a config to actually make the friendly finder the default. We don't want to do that. Slugs. Most application will use the slugged module everywhere. If you wish to do so, uncomment this following line. When friendly ID cannot generate a unique from this, it appends a UUID. You can configure the... Okay, that's all fine. Tips and tricks. Controlling when slugs are generated. As of friendly ID 5, new slugs are generated only when the slug field is nil. If you're using a column as your base method, you can change this behavior by overriding the should generate new friendly ID method that friendly ID adds to your model. I actually use that, but I can't remember in what context. Okay, this all seems fine as well. There's a config that is that thing that we didn't commit before, but we actually have to run this and then commit that again. Okay, so bin Rails DB migrate. Stuff. Then in schema, we need to stage this bit. This is the same, like if you've seen people do this in the terminal, it's the same thing. It's just a UI. Stage that bit. All of that. And again, that events table is just there because it's on our other branch, and I'm just being lazy by not tidying that up. But I don't want to delete stuff in my database. There's probably a way to do it without doing that, but add friendly ID config and migration. The migration for its history feature where we where a model can store previously used slugs so that they continue to be redirected to the correct URL. I don't know if I'm wording that very well, but that'll do. Yeah, that'll do. So I'm just trying to explain why we're bothering to add a migration for a gem. Well, and here, so right now we should have run that. Now we can add this to our organization. These are all separate, what I would normally put as separate groups. Yeah, I think I would normally, this is, again, a standard thing for this. And it's not name, it is, oh, if we do friendly ID, yeah, okay, I guess it is name that we're using because it's the organization that's going to be used as the default. So, okay, I think, and it is, does organization have name? Yes, okay, great. I think that's correct. So now when we do you have a console open? Yes, okay, so we can do organization.create name, test name. Cool, so we can see here, slug, we have test name, and then if we do test space name, we get test hyphen name as the slug. So that's all being handled. And then if we do another one with test space name, you'll notice this one gets suffixed with a UUID. So that's all working as we expect it to. So we probably want to add some tests for that. And although we are using a gem we trust, we don't, or not trust necessarily, but like have used before, that can just go. So here, we want to make sure that if the gem, like we're like, yep, use the gem, it does what it does. We want to make sure that it does what it does so that if the gem breaks or gem changes its behavior, we know. So does that gem validate the presence of slug? Like, does that still pass? Come out of this. It's bigger to read. Just gonna see if that gem adds that default presence validation. So can you? Is there any downside for us adding a validation for that? So I know that there's something in that gem which is like, at what point do I generate this slug? Do we leave that as is on the assumption that we could write a test for when it was saved? I mean, we know that there's an index on there. We probably want to tell people reading the test that that's a thing, but I don't know if that then breaks this behavior. That works, but does that affect? Sorry, I'm just genuinely curious as to how. If we, so one thing is if we add a validation for slug, but that gem doesn't expect there to be a slug until. Well, it does still work. So we would ask an instance of an organization, hey, are you valid? And it wouldn't have a slug, and it would say no. But if it was a new instance and hadn't yet been persisted, that's okay because we don't expect that to happen until we try to persist it the first time. So maybe it's fine that that's empty until it's persisted. And again, we're doing that at the database. Are we doing that at the database? Because we then said that I can say slug. Where's organization? So it says that it's unique, but it's still. That's still allowing null values. So I think I cocked up the migration there. I think by pulling that to get the migration to run. Oh, I guess the okay. Don't know when I would expect to have an instance of an event that didn't have a slug generated, and I would then interrogate whether it was valid. So I'm essentially just checking that this gem here does what I think it's going to do. So let's say that it has a name of Org. So I know that I'm basically testing what the gem is already going to be testing here, but I think we probably want some tests. Just to check that it does what we think it's going to do. I'm just going to put I don't actually know what we want these slugs to be yet, so I'm just going to check that it does something. So here we could do like organization, and the name can be like test org, and the slug test -org. And here, if we then try and do the same thing, we can expect, I don't know what we can expect. That should fail. It should be something other than that, I think. Yep, it's done something. But that's the correct behavior. I don't really know. It's over here, so we can actually read this. It should add a value to ensure slug is unique. I guess I only really wanted. Do I just put a regex to check that it's just prefixed with that and that it's persisted? Like, what's like rspec for starts with? Can I just use Rails starts with? Rspec test starts with. To start with. See if that does. That's stupid. So I'm only going to say suffixes a value to ensure slug, because I actually don't really care in this test what it's checking on the end. I don't think, like, especially as it's a UUID, or maybe I do care that it's a UUID. I don't think so. Okay, that'll do for now. Let's just save that. We're testing that something's happening. Let's not get too bogged down in any of that stuff. I'll do this visually because I've forgot all that stuff in schema. So in here, add all that. We don't need any of that. Yes, okay, cool. Add friendly ID to the organization model. To check that friendly ID does something. At this point, okay, I'm gonna say we're not exactly sure what we do with the plugs. So start with, okay. Yeah, we're only doing this on the stream. We're not too fussed about going into too much detail. Great. Okay, so now we have working slugs for organizations that the user doesn't really need to think about. They'll just be created as if by magic. Do we have to turn on that history feature? Or does that just happen because that migration is there? So let's go to the console somewhere. Find organization.last. Assign that to org. So then we can do org update bang, and we can pass it slug, and we can do new slug. And what happened then? Organizations, begin organization to update. Right, so that doesn't seem to have changed anything in the slug. The migration. You can delete the create friendly slugs if you won't use the history feature, but I do want to use the history feature. How do I turn the history feature on? Or am I just cooking that up? Okay, read more. History. Friendly ID's history module adds the ability to store a log of model slugs so that when its friendly ID changes, it's still possible to perform finds by the old ID. Primary use case for this is avoiding broken URLs. We've done that, done all that stuff. Considerations before, oh, hang on. Because recording slug history requires creating additional database records, this module has an impact on the performance of the associated models create method. So we're not going to be creating that many organizations in comparison to everything else. I think that's fine. So we've got use history here. So that's fine. And so this is just something we then have to bear in mind. So that's still using post.bind. But shouldn't that be using post.friendly.find? If an old ID or a numeric ID was used to find the record, then the request path will not match the post path. And we should do a 301 redirect that uses the current friendly ID. But won't that fail? Well, we can kind of worry about that when we're actually doing the controllers. So all we need at the moment is this use history. We can kind of do this in a separate commit as well. So we want model organization, use slugged, and we want use. Oh, can we do that? What does use accept? Rails friendly ID use history slugged. You can pass an array. History needs to be defined before finders in the menu. Okay. This needs to be added here in bold. Thanks very much. Okay, right, we'll make a note of that in the git commit. So let's add that, and then we'll just go and do the same experiment in the console, shall we? So let's then reload this console, and we'll do the same thing. So we'll take organization equals organization.last, org update, slug is new slug 1, 2, 3. Right, so now we get a whole bunch more stuff. So that's kicked in. So it loads. The slug for the organization. It looks to see if the new one exists and then creates the new one. So if we try to do that again, oh, it's just not doing anything because there's nothing to be done. What does it do? Actually, yeah, can we go back to the old slug? What was the old slug? This one? Will it just be fine and just let us use the old one? It's already in the table. Yeah, I'm assuming it just lets you... Yeah, because there's only 2 in there. Because once it's in the table, it's like fine. I'm only going to pull up all of the slugs for that and see if it exists. So if you switch to an old one, it just doesn't need to do anything. Okay. So that works. Do we want to add in a test on our end for that? Again, we assume that gem has tests, but we actually want to know that whether the behavior changes if the gem breaks. Actually, we can just do it here. So. Yeah, I don't really know. Okay, so here, do the same thing. Choose like slug, old slug, and then we can do I actually don't really care what its name is, so that can go. Yeah. This could be like original slug. And then I think I only really... I think that's what... Do I want to check that this works? quite sure what I'm testing here. I think I'm basically testing. Okay, this will work. So now if I do, this should now fail. Okay, so that should now fail. And should work. So those are two separate things, aren't they? So one is oh, I mean that's the same. Yeah, they've got the same setup. I don't know. So we're not going to define backlog to equal organization. No, we want to do sort of want to do two things. I don't really that one to equal organization. No, what I think I'm trying to do here is like double check that it's not messing with that the gem is not messing with our ability to just completely change the slug when we want, but that whenever we use the friendly helpers, it still persists. So I think maybe this is totally misguided, that here I'm basically testing the behavior of the API that the gem gives us, and that test would fail if that history behavior changes and will tell us that something in the gem has changed we need to go and look at. Maybe. Okay, let's just, again, I'll probably spend more diligence time normally, but we're just doing this for the stream, so kind of go with it. This might actually, so that person in here was indicating that this fails if you put this first, so maybe that would be a good test. Like, does that test now fail? But it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Okay. But that should. Maybe I'm not sure if that's because they fixed the gem so that the ordering doesn't matter. What was that from? 2015. Okay, they probably fixed the gem so that doesn't matter. All right, whatever. Let's set the commit for this. Let's assume that that's just a vaguely useful test. I'm not sure I believe that, but let's do it anyway. This will allow us to reserve URLs when an organization's plug changes. I've added some initial tests here with the goal of trying to see if the gem's behavior changes. Not sure. Not sure how robust these are. That's just a nice thing to read when you're like cursing the previous version of you that wrote it, and you're like, yeah, they weren't robust at all because in months and months time that gem's behavior does change. the test doesn't catch it. And then you think, why did you do this to me? So that's always fun. Let's go. So we've got a slug. The slug has cool features. The slug exists. Now, want to go get it. So we should have wait, was the reason that the null false value didn't run earlier because it was running over the development environment, which already has organizations in it? Is that all that was happening there? And I missed it. Okay. And I didn't want to wipe them. Okay, hang on a second. My brain is half an hour behind. So this we don't care about. That can all go actually. I'll get recreated, but it doesn't matter. So here, commits. Open this right up. Got a typo there anyway. Create friendly ID. Here, this one. I think this one should have null false. I think we couldn't add it previously because there was values in there. Okay. How far are we? One. We're only one migration on from that. I think if we do bin Rails DB rollback step 2, that'll get us there. It won't get us, it will get us there. Okay. So now if we go in and update this, null false. Nope. We want to do migrate. This should fail, I think. Yes, because it contains null values. But what's happening there is it's because there's something in my development environment. Right, okay, I totally missed that earlier. I was not really paying attention. So we can just wipe it, screw it. Like now we're at the stage where I just need to get this stuff loaded up. So now when we do Rails DB migrate, it runs, great. And now we should have change here and here. So this change, so we only need this line and this. And we can just fix this up. We can put fix up, add null to slug call. This can go, just check it. This should be that table that's knocking around for me, the branch, that's fine, that can go. Great, and then we're just gonna do a quick rebase because I think there's a bunch of stuff in here. So we're gonna add the friendly ID gem, add migration for slug column and organization. So this one can come up here and get fixed up into that. That one's got a typo in the first line. Rest are probably fine. We done? We are done. Great. So now in here we have all of that stuff working. But of course we've deleted our organization now, which we now need to recreate. But that's fine because we're going to go and get them working in the URL. Do you know what would be actually pretty handy? I was just thinking about the YouTube video descriptions that I never go back and add these chapters in. The commit messages are probably the most useful thing as an output of these streams. So sometimes people are like, oh, when did that thing happen? Yeah, maybe copying and pasting the commit messages that go in on, get changed on any given one is worth doing. Okay, that's something worth looking into. So enable friend, that's all fine. So that's sort of a PR in and of itself, because then we can do org, enable org slugs or something like that. Like this gets them working, I think. So we can do push origin org slugs. Go and get I'm going to get a Safari browser tab where I'm logged into GitHub. Cool. Compare. So compare and pull request. Gem stuff, blah, blah, blah. Config. Migrations, tests. That's a code review. And that's a joke. That's not how I do my code reviews all the time. So add slugs to organization model. In this PR, we're implementing the friendly gem in order to support slugs on organization, so we can add it to the to URLs, just in general, to add to URLs. So normally you'd write a message to your reviewer, but we don't like all the blurb about all the how, why, and who's and what's it's of your PR, but we haven't got anyone to review this because it's just a stream. So we can just create this, but that will trigger the tests to run. And we're starting to build up a few tests now, so that will happen with GitHub Actions, which is all good fun. So we can sort of say we're going to carry on. We can do, normally we don't want to branch off a branch, but we're just going to keep going. So we can say implement org. Implement's actually a really crap word to use in a branch name, but whatever. So we want, where do we want this to happen? We pretty much want it to happen for the whole or admin namespace. So let's go and take a look at our roots and remember how to do this. So in here, do we just put scope in there, or can we just use it as a resource? So I think, do we want to, what I'm trying to get to is like, do we have something like, and it does something like, I don't know what. And that sort of has like, I don't know what it does. Like this or like this, because I can't remember the scope syntax, but is that what we're looking for here? Skimming through looking for scopes a set of routes to the given default options. The scope path account ID as account resources. This generates helpers such as account projects path. It's like resources does. The difference here being that the routes generated are like account ID projects. So is this the sort of thing I was talking about? And that's not actually the ID, so you could do that. But then what's the difference between doing that? Because my versus like organization 2. And then you could somehow specify the slug on this one. I can't remember how. It was like params 4 or something like that. Options stay the same as base match. So module, admin, resources, post, prefix the /admin, which is we're using namespace, but that's because we need to add that we want the extra /admin in our paths. Prefix the routing helper name, secret post path. Whereas we don't want anything. This generates helpers such as account projects path, but we don't want it to scope to anything. So could we post in module nil? Let's just see what this generates actually. I don't know if I've ever, because I've done this with a subdomain before. Maybe I should actually go and look and see how I did it with a subdomain. That will probably, I'm just looking on the other screen. Bear with me a second. Interesting. Okay. And constraints. /admin stuff. Oh, here we go. So we get /organization slug. Is it possible to have it without? So admin events path. Okay, I think that gives us what we want. So basically we now have admin events path, which is what it was. But that assumes this, right? But we'll only actually check that in like one place and some sort of like base controller or something like that. Okay, this being ID, even though it's not the actual ID, it's not 1, 2, 3, because you can like 1, 2, 3 and both. You only really want users to go 2 ways to access the same thing. So I think means so nothing should break in our tests. And if we load up a server, this should now fail. Load to test org. Great. So we have that. That's organization ID 1. And then earlier on, just do it again. So we can do, we don't have any users, do we? No, okay. So let's go back to the drawing board. Okay, so let's go here. Try and go to solid path. Great. I'll copy this because that's the one we're going to need in a second. Sign up. Great. So that should be user.count is confirmable map free. So we want to go to this. Nope, we're going to do it in here. Something slug, but we're not going to be doing find. We're going to do friendly.find. Actually, I wonder in order to not support ID if we actually do. No, we can't because that's on have slugs. What this also sets it up is it does make it easier to use it as a subdomain. So I mentioned that there was a constraints thing we could pass in roots, and I think we're running sort of running a long one today. Like I said, Muff works. I might do another stream. Try and move this. Admin. We added a slug to organization. We now that'll do. Like that's all I'm really trying to say here. And yeah. Are there any tests for this? I don't know what will fail when this exists actually, so yeah. These then they will all have failed on the previous commit actually, so I think we want to go back and that's going to stop. Should I show any failures on our specking? Do you want to set that? This is super. Okay, we want a slash. And we get no failures because they're obviously both. We want commit so that all the tests pass. I mean, loads of stuff in here because I think. In our initial quest specs. Cool. Generating the path. So it was tabulation to of course, I think we can really tag this on the end of that. Slugs, yeah. So this was all add slugs. Get log online. So I'm just going to add this to that PR. Yep. So it's now on the end here, and they should run the test here. This commit, so 1 to org-slugs branch, and then this, and then have a different branch. Merge this, have another branch that we rebased on master, and then move forward. Because all of that ended up only being running the tests again, which is fine. And it keeps the PR open, and everything in here is still the same. Maybe we can change. These are then added to pass, then merge it. I mean, you can jump to the other branch and check that our form then renders with the slug in the path. Because we only do a couple hours a week, but like these are these are things that will last for the length of the application. Like you're doing really pretty foundational stuff here, so like having organizations and have their slug. You're all good. Budget in. See what it's doing. Oh, it hasn't even started running the test yet. Okay. So we can check out master, and we can do git merge. So as long as you don't push it, it won't. Git merge orgs logs. That's now merged. Everything gets lovely green ticks. That's great. Then we can do git push origin master. This should go all good. That branch is now merged. Check out create event. For all of that did not work. Migration. Wait, where are the other? Wait, what? Oh, I didn't rebase it. I'm an idiot. And then just do, does hard work without the origin? If you do this, will it just, no, okay. Good. Bunch of stuff happening in here. We can just destroy clicked in. Just schema. We do accept current change on everything. That totally did not work. Did accept not current change not do what I thought it did? What should this add migration for the was that? Oops. Now if we do git rebase master, sorry, I totally screwed that up. Git rebase master. So in here you get the same. Oh, would I put accept current change, which shouldn't have put the events on this, but let's do it anyway. Oh, because that's the 70. I see. Yeah, I thought I didn't need to do this. 24. Here. It thinks it does. Okay. So add new action. So it's just adding that just to replace that. Okay, good. It's because commits is up there. I think it's just because I'm zoomed in. Line. Fine. That. Add that. So then we can. Oh, fix up quotes. Does that not make it go away with no change? Done. I think we have a bunch of stuff. And what does that bunch of stuff do? I think it should mean that we can now go to /events/new, but none of that will work because we haven't got any seeds and all of that fun stuff, so that we don't have to keep. Server is already running. Oh no, I wanted to console. Sensible enough to have done that yet. So we now have an organization, and that has /Sunday/club. And what we should now be able to do, because we'll work in the previous branch, which we put on masking, which I don't even think is an association we built yet. Then we can no users in the database because we wiped it. Oh no, we want to sign in. Sign. And we are gonna say, if we go up far enough, oh, here we go, perfect. We're gonna create an organization membership between that user and our /Sunday Club. Ta-da! And we can do / why is there no form there? I thought we had made... Shit. Nope. Oh man, did I cock that whip commit up? I wonder, because you didn't push anything to origin. So on my branches, create events, implement org slugs, master. The downside of not paying enough attention. Good. Event to F. I'm writing this from, and then because we've got simple form 4, we can do f.input. No, we can't because I can't type. We can do f.input, and we can put name. And I'm not going to bother doing labels for now because we can come back to that. And then we can do, we can quickly add it in here. I know we don't actually have to do that, but it makes it explicit that we've added it. We need to handle that now. And we can also do f dot. And time zone. That's fine. Unify method model name for nil. And we didn't assign the event, which we need to do here. And we also need to define the, quite literally back where we started at the start, view component to do our forms for a bunch of really good reasons. We now have slugs that exist within organizations, and that slug is now part of the URL. So we can use that. We are using that in terms of auth. So if I were to try and create, so let's go to /admin/events. I think this should work. We have /Sunday Club /events. Then if we do org, right? Membership record, whereas you can see the event for that org either, which is amazing. Here, the question, because we covered it when we literally added it HTML, had issues with that. And we're looking at using view component for the forms so that we could have reusable UI elements. There's a bunch that didn't have any issues. So it was just how much you get for free. Rails. I'm going to take a look about the bitrate. I hope this part we're able to see any of this stuff, but I'm going to leave the stream, fix these connection issues.